So Kevin Smith is still going with his lies. He is still being exposed every single day by people like Clownfish TV. And while he is promising that part 2 of the series is going to have a lot more He-Man than we expect, I don't think it's going to be the He-Man that we are expecting. I don't think it's going to be Prince Adam, and he is exposed for baiting and switching once again. If you are also tired of people like Kevin Smith and others ruining pop culture, ruining stuff like Star Wars and Marvel, then please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. I try to post multiple videos on this channel every single day. Let's get into the video. So not only did Kevin Smith lie and bash Clownfish TV and bash Screen Rant, he baited and switched everyone into thinking that this was going to be a He-Man centric show. He was so insecure about it not being He-Man centric that he lied about it for a year and a half, and we got baited and switched. Everyone watched the show thinking that it was going to be a He-Man show. We had hope, even though Clownfish TV had exposed the fact that it's not going to be a He-Man show about a year and a half prior to the show's release, but we still had hope. We still wanted to see He-Man do some cool He-Man stuff, so we thought maybe we would give it a shot. But yes, once again, we got baited and switched. But now, Kevin Smith and whoever else was on the show with him, which I'll show you the clip in 1 second, they were promising that we were going to get a lot more He-Man in season 2, in part 2, whatever you want to call it. In this clip right here from My Nerdy Home, whenever Kevin Smith did that live stream where he had this guy Griffin Newman on, they were promising that we were going to get a lot more He-Man in season 2 than we were expecting, and a lot more He-Man than we got in season 1 or part 1, whatever you want to call it. Let's check it out real quick.
I'm not. Should I? Fucking why not?
You can say episode 6 goes hard.
Episode 6. At the end of episode 6, we do something that they've never done in the franchise before.
You're gonna get more He-Man than you think you wanted.
And episode 7 contains no bullshit. And you know, I know I'm going to say this, and then a very vocal contingency of the internet is going to say I'm lying or something.
Apologize!
Like
Atone!
that I'm baiting and switching or something.
Not even
like
going to
that,
say anything about that.
I promise you, on my child's life. In episode 7, there is a Skeletor and spoilers, He-Man fight.
Now, that sounds great and everything, right? That sounds great. Like, okay, we're going to see more He-Man in part 2, but it might not be the He-Man that we all think. If we look at this article right here, where they interviewed Tiffany Smith, Newsweek interviewed Tiffany Smith, where she says, I play the first black woman in Kevin Smith's Masters of the Universe revelation, but that's not really what this video is about. While, you know, that statement is pretty obnoxious in itself, that's not what this video is about. She actually said something way more important, especially for part 2 of the series. This is very important for exposing more and more Kevin Smith lies. We know that he's been lying the whole time. We know that he lied about part 1, but then he came back and said on his YouTube channel that he's not baiting and switching for part 2, that He-Man will play a prominent role, that we are going to get a lot more He-Man than we were expecting. And he even said in that clip and made fun of everyone who was coming after him on Twitter, on YouTube, all of that stuff. They even made fun of him along with the guy next to him, Griffin Newman. I don't even know what part he has to play in He-Man or Masters of the Universe. I don't know what part he has to play, but they were both making fun of all the fans who don't like what they did with part 1. And he's saying, he's promising, and he's literally saying in there, I know you're not going to believe me, but this is what's going to happen in part 2. And he baits and switches us again. This is Tiffany Smith talking in her interview. She says, I was definitely inspired to do more volunteer work and speak up on issues that affect me. Seeing Megan continue to do that, no matter how hard it may be, is something I have so much respect for. There was a lot of focus on me just playing her in a film, so I can't even imagine the level of attention she experiences. Not long after, an audition for Masters of the Universe Revelation came up. I did the audition, but I didn't want to reach out to Kevin or anything. I really wanted my work to speak for itself. I remember at the end of the audition, I had to say the iconic, I have the power line, so I pulled my lightsaber off the wall because yes, I have two, and raised it over my head as I said the line. So she says that she has to say the I have the power line, the line where He-Man holds his sword to the sky, and once he says the line, he gets the power of He-Man. He transforms into He-Man, where it's usually Adam transforming into He-Man. Now, why would Tiffany Smith, playing Andra, have to say this line in an audition? Very strange, right? Well, I think, and I've been saying this ever since Kevin Smith said this on his YouTube channel. I've been saying this. I didn't say there was going to be Andra. I just said that whenever they said that He-Man is going to come back in part 2 and play a big role in part 2, and that we were going to get a lot more He-Man than we expected in part 2, that it was going to be yet another bait and switch. And I didn't think it was going to be Andra, but I did say that I think it was going to be a female taking up the mantle of He-Man. I think that it was going to be a female He-Man, which makes no sense. A female with the name or mantle mantle or title or whatever you want to call it of He-Man is absolutely ridiculous, but that is what they are going to do. She said, I realized they think it was super cool. Thankfully, a couple of weeks later, I got a call saying I had booked the role of Andra. So that line alone, just that one little quote where she says that she has to say the I have the power line is so telling. And we already know what's going to happen. I already knew as soon as Kevin Smith came out and said that we were going to get a lot of He-Man in part 2, I was like, there's no way that he's completely lying again and that He-Man will be completely absent from part 2. But what are they really going to do? How are they really going to give us He-Man while staying woke, while doing the Netflix thing, while pushing that Netflix agenda, that Hollywood agenda that Kevin Smith, that Hollywood, and especially Netflix wants to push in this show? The only way that they can do that is by making a female He-Man. That's the only way. But let's check in on the Rotten Tomatoes score. It's still at 38%. They had frozen the scores. I'm not sure if it's still frozen or not. For some reason, I can't leave a review, but you can let me know in the comments if you can leave a review right now. But whenever it wasn't frozen, before it was frozen, it was at around 27%, I believe, or maybe even lower, maybe even 23. But I know at some point it definitely got to 27. And then once they froze it, it jumped up about 5%. And now it's up at least 11% because I know it did get as low as 27%. And now it's at 38%. So they froze it and it jumped at least 11%. A little bit fishy if you ask me, especially because Kevin Smith and all the others were complaining about review bombing and botting and all of that other stuff. All these articles being written saying that all of these fans are review bombing, and then they freeze the reviews and it jumps up at least 11%, maybe even more. It's a little bit fishy if you ask me. It's definitely Rotten Tomatoes changing the score, but it doesn't matter that much. The point got across. Netflix knows, Kevin Smith knows, everyone knows that no one likes this show. If the score isn't 38%, that's bad enough. It should be a lot worse, but 38% is bad enough, especially when the critics give it a 96%. If the audience score is at 38%, that says a lot. But also, we have this news from Cosmic Book News that says Kevin Smith's He-Man disappears from Netflix top 10. I don't know if that's because Netflix, I know that Netflix controls what's in their top 10. It's not actually what their audience is watching. It's Netflix controlling what's in their top 10. But I don't know if that's because people stopped watching He-Man and Masters of the Universe, or just Masters of the Universe, not He-Man, and you get the point. I don't know if that's because Netflix just took it off, or if because people actually did stop watching it, or if Netflix is just tired of the bad press, even though Kevin Smith came out and said that any press is good press and all of that stuff. We can hopefully kiss Kevin Smith's woke He-Man series Masters of the Universe Revelation goodbye on Netflix, as it is learned that the show has quickly dropped out of the top 10. YouTuber Grace Randolph has pointed out that Masters of the Universe Revelation in its second weekend had already dropped out of the top 10 in the US. Not a good sign at all. Once again, I don't know if this means that this is not enough people watching the show, because I know that Netflix does control their top 10. I believe this is what Grace Randolph says. She says, on Netflix this week, fans sent a clear message to Kevin Smith and the company who tried to spin the negative reaction last week as if it was a couple of upset fans who were review bombing, but it's hard to argue with Masters of the Universe Revelation dropping out of the overall top 10 and the top 10 TV shows just after 1 week, while so many other shows have stayed in the top 10 for weeks on end. You know, so forget just 2 weeks. I think that makes it a more serious situation. We'll see what happens with part 2. I mean, I think it's already done, right? I don't think they can reanimate it. And yes, it is already done. They are ready to release it at any time. But I don't think it's going to do well at all. I don't think any fans who actually care about He-Man, who actually care about Masters of the Universe, who watch this show to see He-Man do some cool He-Man stuff, which I would say is most of us. We just want to watch He-Man do cool He-Man stuff. Anyone who watches the show for that purpose is probably not going to watch part 2 unless you're a YouTuber like me. I'll probably end up watching part 2 just so I can watch the show and then give honest reviews instead of just talking about other people's reviews and stuff like that. I would probably end up watching the show just for that reason, but I don't think a lot of the other fans, the true fans out there, I don't think are going to end up watching the show, not even out of anger, just out of pure indifference for the show. If the character that everyone cares about in He-Man is absent or is, you know, a female for whatever reason, I don't think people want to watch the show unless it's Prince Adam as He-Man doing cool He-Man stuff. That's just what I think, but let me know what you think in the comments about this new lie by Kevin Smith being exposed. The fact that Andra is now going to be the new He-Man or the new champion. I don't know if they're going to change the name from He-Man to She-Woman. I don't really know what's going to happen. Let me know in the comments what you think is going to happen. If you did enjoy this video, please leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. If you want to follow me on Twitter, that link will be in the description. Thank you for watching the video. Hope to see you in the next one.